everyone. This is BioAfrica 2021, and greet my panelists first, and also great to our listeners of the BioAfrica Convention and our viewers to all the platforms that we are streaming from. I've got some of the best institutions that support innovation to discuss a very critical topic, which I'm sure every entrepreneur in the country wants to listen to, every entrepreneur within the continent wants to listen to, which is mobilizing funding and investment for the African bioeconomy. My panelists today, as I said earlier on, are one of the best institutions that this country has when it comes to support innovations and developing innovative activities and products. My name is Siyabulela Ntutela, and from Africa Bio. I'm the board of member. With the colleague from the city of eThekwini, we've got Mr. Russell Curtis. Russell is the head of Invest Durban, and Invest Durban, for those who do not know, is a partnership between the Metro City Council, which is the city of eThekwini, and private business sector, amongst others, Africa Bio, offering free advisory and service, investor advisory, especially, and promotion, because that's what is also needed, access to market. And Russell will be telling us more about what they do. We've got Dr. Blessed Okole. He's one of the well-known entrepreneurs in the space of agricultural biotechnology. He comes from the CSIR, but more importantly, he's probably one of the people I know who've raised funding from donor funds, the Gates and others, successfully on many projects within the continent. He's going to tell us more about that. We have Mr. Colin Mkonza, who's the CEO of Kemin Incubator, which is an instrument of the Department of Small Enterprises in the South African government. And I know they've now taken the space of biotechnology as one of the instruments that they are supporting, what that they're doing in biotech. And the roles of my partner, Ara Rosmarin, she's a head of entrepreneurial development from CITI, which is Cape Innovation and Technology Initiative, an NPO based in the Western Cape. Again, they support a lot of startups. I'm sure we heard about their launches either this morning through the BioCity. So panelists, welcome to this topic, and want to hear more about what your institution does. And we'll start with you, Russell. Mr. Curtis from the city of eThekwini, especially Invest Durban. What do you guys do? How do you support entrepreneurs, and what activities do you do in raising investment for our entrepreneurs in the country?
Good morning, Sia. Thanks very much, and good morning, fellow panelists. Just a note, please, of AV Tech. Lloyd at Selby's, your microphone is on. And, you're cutting across the sound of the speakers. So Lloyd at Selby's, mute your mic. Sia, just a 2 seconds. You've already really introduced Invest Durban. We work as that partnership between public sector, private sector, the international community. And so we're very pleased today to be a major sponsor in a long-term partnership with Africa Bio NPC and this BioAfrica event. And that's really a reflection for us of the opportunities in this emerging space. So just a question of clarity, Mr. Panel Chair. Do you want us to speak about our 3 to 5 minute session now, or was this just a quick round of intros?
Sure, please go ahead and just tell us more.
Okay, excellent. So really my submission to members watching the event today is entitled Positioning Yourself and Your Business for Finance and Investment. I think too often we focus on where's the money, where's the money, where's the money, who has the money, who has the checkbook, who has the checkbook, and we don't necessarily position ourselves, and we think about ourselves and positioning the business for finance and investment. I myself am an ex-banker. You can say I'm now doing my community service to pay back for the global financial crisis. And so I'll draw on what's commonly known as the 5 C's. And that's character, and I'll explain each one very quickly. Character, capacity or cash flow, the condition of your business, the capital, and then obviously the collateral. Now, the character, that's talking about you as the entrepreneur. That's talking about you as the major shareholder. That's talking about you as the board of directors. You need to position yourselves properly for finance and investment. And that can include things like background, education, industry knowledge, experience, etc. And so my first recommendation is, whilst we all get very quickly focused on the product, we get very quickly focused on the research, we get very quickly focused on the next version of what we're going to put out. And sometimes, in terms of positioning ourselves for finance and investment, we don't introspect and think about your own character. So what can you do? Well, there are a number of free online certificates and diplomas and degrees. So go and have a look at the likes of Coursera. Go and have a look at the likes of Udemy. How can you improve your own positioning as an individual in terms of your character and being positioned for finance? There are scholarships for online study at some of the best universities, whether that's Yale, Princeton, or even MIT. It's not just about can you afford to pay MIT. So I'm saying position yourself better for finance and investment. The next one is cash flows, or the capacity of the business. How can we improve our positioning there? Well, for those who perhaps still at the early stages and don't know some of these things, and you're thinking, well, I've got a great idea, I've done some excellent research in a tertiary institution, but now I need to go and find money, and you're at that starting stage. Well, it really is no more complicated than going onto Google and looking for a cash flow template, or looking for a profit and loss template. Now, I know this might sound basic to those of you who are more advanced, but there are thousands of young entrepreneurs, thousands of young researchers who don't know a single thing about finance and investment and need to know where to start. So go onto Google, Google that P&L projection template or that cash flow template, and work systematically or intuitively from the top down all the way through. But another little tip, another little hint as you're going through this, be sure to list your assumptions as you work down that cash flow. The key assumptions that are driving your turnover, that are driving your costs, that are driving your marketing, that are driving a whole lot of things. List your assumptions and try and put them in certain parameters. And my last comment around this capacity or cash flow is look for opportunities in what I'd call the scale jump. The scale jump. What are those things that can give you a quantum leap in your scale? What are them? Cost them. Include them in an appropriate point in your projections with a realistic effect on your turnover. So that's the second one, capacity and cash flow. And then on the condition, and this is really where I'll start to begin to conclude, is on the condition of your business, the condition of the industry, the condition of the economy. Is it a match? And I'd focus the condition of your business, whether that's your research, whether that's your product about to go to market, whether that's the positioning of your company in a branding sense. Focus on sustainability issues. There's an increasing trend in finance that's looking for impact. Yes, the standard financial metrics of impact, but also things like social dividends. There's an increasing concern in both financiers, whether they're debt or investment in equity, around ESGs, the environmental factors, the social factors, the governance factors. So think about the condition of your business, the condition of your product, the condition of your branding, and start to lean into those sustainability issues so that you are better positioned into a sweet spot. A great place to start would be with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There's 17 of them.
Selby, I just need to be certain that you are still online. Dr. Okole, you're from the CSIR, and as I said earlier on, you've raised quite a substantial amount of capital from donor funders and so on. But first tell us about what CSR does. What do you do at the CSR?
But it's sad that we don't exploit most of it. I know African Development Bank, which is top on the left, is one of those that we are looking funding. No Fund, World Bank at the bottom, and IFC. We have some projects here in South Africa which they are funding. But we should try to exploit most of this funding opportunities. In South Africa, what are the grant funding opportunities that we have? We have the government departments, which is the Department of Science and Innovation, Agriculture, Environment, DTI, Department of Small Businesses. And then we also have the National Research Foundation, which they give bursaries, and they also have small grants where they take their projects right up to proof of concept. And then we have the Technology Innovation Agency. They have financial and non-financial funding mechanisms, and they do seed funding, technology development, right up to pre-commercialization. And the non-financial funding is mainly on like innovation programs or bilaterals, and then the Industrial Development Corporation that takes it to commercialization, and then banks, and then donor fundings like the Bill and Melinda Gates, where we succeeded to get around $20 million for one of the projects that I wrote, and also USAID, EU, DFID, African Academy of Sciences. There are challenges facing most of these organizations. The funding agencies are trying now to be as smart as possible. Some of them, they look at the donor countries and try to prioritize. The different criteria now are being used to apply. They said this funding is mainly for NGOs or for government, so you need to be aware of that. Or they say donor funding, they have political interference. If there is an issue in that country, they can put funding in that country. Or you have donor prejudices, which is if your institutions can't deliver. I tell you, most of the funding agencies, they know your institution, you will not be able to get funding. Or natural or man-made occurrences, which is mainly like pandemics. We all see what is happening right now. Most of the funding now is going towards COVID-19. It used to be HIV, or it used to be flood if it happens in an area, or the type of networks that you are putting together. So it's important to have a good network to, and in my conclusion, you hear what I will say also about that. Capacity building in the institution, accountability, communication is also very important in your project. So this is areas that many big funding agencies are looking at, and they've prioritized the whole world. You could see high priority countries in red, medium priority in orange, low priority in green, and on target. Unfortunately, South Africa falls on target. So what do? You have to look at countries which are in the high priority to partner with them for you to put your proposals through, and there's high chance of you getting that. Just to conclude, these are just from my own personal experiences. You must try to do a desktop study on the funding organization that you are putting your application to. You must understand resource mobilization, and you must try to put a very powerful consortium. So if you have, most of your projects have value chain, different value chains, you must put leaders in that value chain so that you have a high chance of getting that project. And your project must be very innovative. You have a good log frame where we have milestones, deliverable timelines, and budgets. And then, like my colleague Russell said, your quality of financials is very, very important, and financial management. And a key thing also that funders are looking also is on sustainability. How sustainable is your project if the funds are pulled out? What is the outreach of your project? What is the relevance of the projects that should be supported? And then finally, of course, the risk and mitigations. Chair, that's just my few cents on the starting for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Okole. It's very good points you raised, and I like the slide where you're giving us some of the organizations that we could tap into as a country and a continent, and some of them are within our own continent. But we will come back to that. Colin, I know as Kemin, you do a lot of incubation, but the question becomes, how do you mobilize some of the funds that you got? Do you go outside? Are they all internal? Tell us more about what your incubator does as Kemin. Over to you, Colin.
I hope you can see my
Colin, are you with us? We can see your screen.
Can you see?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Doc. Kemin, as you know, it's a government program established under SIDA, and it's now funded by Gauteng Province Department of Economic Development, ECDC, and AECI. As you know, Kemin is an incubator. We focus on chemical detergents, cosmetic paints and coatings. We are now starting on cannabis, and we are also looking at quite a few processes. Basically, there we took over the program of Igoli Bio. Igoli Bio as an incubator does not exist anymore. So we took over that program and we're implementing it under Kemin. That program sought to assist with indigenous knowledge systems and with nutraceutical herbal infusions, cosmeceutical and African traditional medicine, as well as looking at natural products, agro-processing, industrial biotech, and medicinal devices. So we took over that program from Igoli Bio, and we're now implementing it under Kemin. What we have done is we've now started an ESD fund, which is a loan fund for about 30 million, which is extended to SMEs in those sectors that are covered, that I've just highlighted. And our role as an incubator ends with project origination, and the financial assessment and adjudication is subcontracted to Risk Insights, or TIFIN. And the loan fund is between 50,000 and 5 million. And for the funds are provided us at 5%, at prime less 5%, which is currently about 2%. And loans we extend to SMEs for up to 9%, obviously depending on the risk profile of that SME. It's open to all SMEs in those sectors that I've just mentioned. We are looking for businesses with strong cash flows, and we offer revolving loans. Over and above that, we then assist the SMEs that we finance through our Camp Shop, which is an e-commerce platform that is now live, where we sell products that have gone through some quality assurance through the platform. The central distribution place is in Modderfontein, and we are currently testing systems of the platform, but it's live. You can order products and receive your products. And once it's fully tested, we'll then launch it in September. And then we've got our laboratory aspect to it. We now have got 3 laboratories in the whole country. Here in Modderfontein, we've got the chemicals laboratory, and in VUT, we've got a microbiology laboratory in collaboration with the VUT Science Park ICGPT initiative there. And then we've got a chemicals laboratory in Gomashu called the Vula Detergent Center. We do product tests, we do product development, quality assurance. We also assess formulations, and we're now venturing into importing and exporting laboratory chemicals through that initiative. And then lastly, we now have a Chemtech Institute, which offers accredited training for soft skills and technical training. Talking more about the fund, offer loans to chemical companies that venture into chemical detergents, cosmetics, hair care, and skincare, as well as indigenous knowledge systems. Those are companies that do herbal infusions, traditional medicine, food products, herbal nutraceuticals, industrial biotech, and agro-processing. And the funds are mainly used for expansion, meaning that if you want to expand your manufacturing facilities, you can apply for that fund. If you want to apply to be assisted with raw materials, you are ready to go to the market, but you require funding for raw materials, then we can assist you with that funding. And also for manufacturing, meaning contract manufacturing of products to fulfill offtakes. Those are the types of companies that use the funds for. Our intervention really, it doesn't end with just giving you the money. Like I've mentioned, as an incubator, our role is to originate the project, assist the SMEs prepare for applications, And then the applications will then go through to Risk Insight, who are our service provider on the financial assessments, adjudication, and handling all the legal aspects and the repayments and so forth. Through our laboratories, we offer product development and quality testing. Obviously, there is services are paid for. Like I've mentioned, we've got 3 laboratories, Modderfontein, Vula in Guamashu, and VUT. That is a paid service. We are currently undergoing accreditation for ISO 17025, 2017 for all our laboratories. As an incubator, we then offer financial management aspect, where we assist with bookkeeping and financial management services, your compliances with SARS and everything else. That is a paid service as well. We've got dedicated staff that assist SMEs with regard to raw material procurement and research related. On the manufacturing side, we are putting 2 manufacturing plants. One is a manufacturing plant for natural products, cosmetics related, and we're also including there a line for nutraceuticals and natural products. That project is located here in Modderfontein. It's funded by the Jobs Fund. And we're looking for the plant to be GMP and ISO 22716 accredited. We also are 50% on the way to completion of our soaps and salt plant, a dedicated plant for manufacturing soaps and salts here in Modderfontein. It also be a paid for service for that plant. With VT, we've partnered to start the IKS program. We've recently renovated the ICBT building, the Institute of Chemicals and Biotechnology building in VT, where we are now locating all our IKS SMEs in that building. We then assist SMEs either funded through the program or incubated by us with through our camp shop, that is market access through our camp shop, as well as we've signed a collaboration agreement with Pila Pagate Wellness Shops, where we enlist clients that concentrate on natural products and have their products quality assured. We then sell them through Pila Pagate Wellness Shops. They all have got about 5 outlets in the country.
Okay.
That's all what we do for now, Dr. Ntutela.
Wow, that's very interesting, Colin. Thank you for that. Lara is the last of the original presentations. I know part of your institutions, I think to be exact, BioCity, but many others in the city.
Thank you very much, Siya.
A lot of investment from startups, from offshore sources. Yes, can you tell us more about what strategies you guys implement to get these funds unlocked?
Thank you, Siya. Thanks very much for including me in the panel. Just to say, it was absolutely fabulous to hear from the other panelists, to hear Russell talk about the scale jump and the social dividends and the SDGs, and Dr. Okale to talk about the immense potential in Africa and his blended finance, and Colin to hear from you and Kemen. So it's really been great to be part of the session and to learn from you all. So thank you for including me. So as many of you know, City is the Cape Innovation and Technology Initiative. We're an NPO, and our mission is to build a future-proof, inclusive society through tech and innovation. And City as a whole, we saw immense potential in biotechnology, to do good and positively impact people's lives. So that is what led to the development of BioCity, our biotech cluster. And BioCity is a platform for biotech entrepreneurs to turn their ideas into creative solutions. So we are very, very passionate about biotechnology and about assisting entrepreneurs. And clustering is a business theory that has demonstrated immense success in stimulating new industry, as we all know. And BioCity's program is designed to support the entrepreneurs by providing them with a myriad of areas of assistance. So firstly, we have our BioCity labs, where they can develop and improve their concepts without any strings attached. So it's an open source opportunity. And in addition to that, we provide support through business, financial, and technical mentorship, as well as access to our networks and support in developing bankable business plans for access to investor funding. So we know that no business is the same, and we know that no business needs are exactly the same. So we are able to develop a particular program and a particular trajectory for a business that suits their needs. So it's the lab space, it's co-work space, it is mentorship in terms of financial, technical, and business mentorship. And it's a culmination of all these factors that we believe will set the business up for positive growth trajectory going forward. Could you hear me, Sia? You froze for a minute, but I'm hoping that you could hear me.
Yes, I heard you. I heard you.
Great,
Thanks, Lara,
thank
for
you.
that. Yes, yeah. Thanks, Lara, for that.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for, yes, thank you for your input on the subject. And I heard almost all of you, you seem to be mentioning the activities that are happening in the country. My question then, which I'll probably throw over to you, Blessed, and maybe you, Russell, is where is the money beyond government and beyond the borders of South Africa? Because I mean, we can't be looking only at government. Are there doors that could be knocking at, internationally? And if so, I know Blessed you listed a number of these entities. Are we making inroads? And who are the winners? Are other countries that are doing better than us? If so, what are they doing that we don't do? Where is the money?
Let me take a 2 minutes start on this one.
Over to you, Russell.
Since I've played a big role in that area also, before Russell can come in. Yes, there's money out of the South Africa, but especially for our institutions in South Africa here, we should learn how to partner also. This partnership, building network partnership with the right partners plays a big role. For some of the funds like the European Union, it comes to the country, but certain institutions they can't participate, they can't transfer money just because of the status of the country. So the way I would propose is that we should start thinking of expanding our networks, partnering with key institutions also in different African countries to try and put forward for this grant. Gates Foundation is there, USAID is there, DFID is there. There are also, like I said, African Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank. So if you have these good partnerships, those are some of the areas that you have to do. So I'm proposing that we start looking at building networks and partnerships and putting proposals through to most of these key organizations. There is a lot of money out of the country, which we need to try to bring into the country. And this is one of the ways I'm proposing.
Thank you for that. Do you want to add more to that, Russell?
Yeah, Sia, thanks very much. Look, I think what I'd like to say to everyone is keep the faith. Keep the faith. There is most definitely hope. Sia, you sent me that very kind report, the Disrupt Africa startup funding report for 2020. And it confirms that the startup scene, and it's not just pure startups, it's also expansion, whether that's Series A, Series B, Series D, C or D funding. That ecosystem across the African continent is expanding. It's expanding quite rapidly. If you have a look at the number of investors that are trolling across the continent for these opportunities, it's nearly doubled in the last 3 years. So it's quite comforting to know that Africa is in fact what I call, it's my term, the last frontier of opportunity. And now we're seeing the rest of the world turn its sights on our continent. And so where can people look? I think we need to look beyond the traditional, especially if you think about it in a South African context. And I would imagine that the same applies to the other big 4 areas. So you asked where it's happening. Well, it's happening in Nigeria, it's happening in Kenya, it's happening in Egypt. I think we all need to look beyond the traditional high street banks. So start looking into the value chains of multinationals, whether they be multinational utilization in the food and beverage space, whether that be in the pharmaceutical space, or whether that might be in the industrial use cases. So start looking into the value chains of those multinationals, and then you'll start to find some very implementable projects and quite likely some checks to follow that. So don't see all the banks the same. Again, here in a South African context, look at local niche players. So in South Africa, the likes of business partners. Yes, they'll come with some funding, but they'll also potentially come as an equity partner if you don't have sufficient collateral or you can't get certain capacities in your cash flows running. And likewise, some of the international banks are quite keen in this space, whether that be Citibank, HSBC, Barclays, and the others. Then I think another key area, which is perhaps sometimes ignored, is the diplomatic community. And in addition to that, the expat community. So Africa, we have a number of countries that, trolled across our continent for hundreds of years, whether that be from Germany, whether that be from Spanish-speaking world or Portuguese-speaking world, or whether that be from English-speaking world or Francophone countries. And I think it's quite important we don't just see that in a history sense, or we see that in an ancient colonization sense. I think it's quite important that we tackle those proactively, constructively through the diplomatic community. We're seeing it in Kenya, in as much as there are European expats with a long history in Kenya who are attracting big investment there. We're seeing the UK government partnering in this space with Kenya. So let's reach into those diplomatic community links, because they are all there and they have got funding programs, whether that's from the US, Germany, UK, or other opportunities. Let's leverage off of those diplomatic community funding pots and expat community linkages. I'll stop there for the moment. Thank you.
Yes, a very, very, very unique point there, Russell, especially on the part of diplomatic relations. I mean, South Africa seems to we sign a lot of these relations to almost as many countries as possible, and perhaps it's a good point that we need to start to tap into that. I know, Lara, you wanted to add to the point.
Thanks so much, Sia. I just wanted to say that I think it's important that we don't exclude VC funding in the space. And I think that even though we know that there is some hesitancy and some reticency, and that the VCs generally like to see impact and return on investment before almost making an investment, I just think that VC funding needs to remain on the radar. So I just wanted to add that in, along with all the other points that were made.
Sure, certainly. I mean, that's good. But the question that becomes, and again, it's open to us, but I'm coming back to you, Lara, is are we winning with these VC funders, and what should our entrepreneurs do differently? Or perhaps, do we need to start to think of establishing or getting these VCs to establish themselves in the African continent to understand African biotech? Because we know that in the US, almost billions of rands every month are spent by VC, by the African continent. And I think Russell quoted the Disrupt Africa report. Much as money is there, but there is just a few winners. Are we winning as an African continent in the space of VC internationally?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and I'd like to quote our head of BioCity, Deepak, who describes it when I said to him, "Are we winning in the VC space?" And he says, "Lara, there are green shoots emerging." So there is some positivity, and there are some signs of success happening within the VC funding space. But something that I'm experiencing across the board, not only in the biotech sector or in biotechnology as it may be, is that we're finding that entrepreneurs and young businesses are going to present their case to the VCs for funding, but they're not presenting a complete case. And there are parts of the cases that are missing. So they're given the space and time by a VC. The VC is ready to look at what they have to offer, but they don't present all the necessary information for the VC to make an informed decision. And it's one of the gaps that we've identified at Citi. And we've actually put together a product called a Funding Readiness Driver in partnership with Outsource CFO to help young entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in ideation and build and grow phases to put together a really compelling deck for a VC to be able to look through and make an informed decision. And I don't necessarily think that it's the businesses that aren't yet ready to receive the funding or the VCs that are not willing to give the funding. I think we need to provide a complete and comprehensive, amount of information to ensure success in this transaction. So I think we could definitely work together more deeply with our entrepreneurs in a funding readiness driver space to ensure that what they're presenting to the VC will set them up for success and funding going forward.
Great stuff. There's a question that has come to me along the same lines, and perhaps Colin will come in here, because the question is, the funds that we put out there to support entrepreneurs, especially within the biotech sector or life sciences sector, within the context of what our government can afford, we think are sufficient. But if you look globally, we are not competitive. Now, the question is that is coming up is now, what are the mechanisms that the state-owned entities, calling the incubator that we're running, and others, to start to partner with international funders and channel those funds through their incubation program so that African startups can have sufficient funding, not just limited funds. What are the models that are out there that are used by our incubators, Colin and other colleagues, to make sure that we partner with international funders and donors, not only just the government? Are you there, Colin? Perhaps Russell, if you want to step in, are there partnership models that we should be looking at through our state-owned entities so that the state can draw these funds and bring them into our entrepreneurs and not only be reliant on the state?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I can draw from the recent experience in South Africa with COVID and COVID funding, where government tried to start allocating public sector funds and public sector support into a greater number of private sector vehicles or partnership vehicles. Look, some have been successful, some have not been successful. And so I think one of the key trends for me is where public sector, where it has certain funding, it intentionally partners with private sector's delivery mechanisms. It intentionally partners with private sector or at least NPO delivery channels and delivery platforms. There just isn't sufficient linkage and space and channel if all entrepreneurs have to go into the public sector pot of money. So I'm absolutely in favor of those various forms of PPPs. And there are a growing number of businesses stepping forward and saying, do it with us. So we have in Durban one of those structures. It's called Innovate Durban. And Innovate Durban is a nice little, if I can use the term PPP, public-private partnership. And in that space, what we were able to do is partner with public sector, partner with private sector, and we've now got a database of funding, which has probably got at least 300 different sources of funding through that PPP model of Innovate Durban. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add, we as an example of such partnership with our ESD fund. The funds come from a combination of SOE and private sector funding. So that fund it's a combination. It's a triple P. And the way we've set it up, remember that Kemin is an NPO, non-for-profit, but we've also partnered with the private sector as a delivery mechanism because we didn't have the licenses for fund management, for NCR licenses to loan up money, but we had to partner with a private sector company to be able to be the conduit of those funds. And in implementing an adjudication, we've allowed the private sector company to manage that aspect because they've got the experience and they have the expertise, and we don't have that experience and expertise. So that's why our role ends at project origination, and they take over that, do the adjudication, the legal contracting, and so forth. Yeah.
Nana, are there good models that we could look at as a country, perhaps not as a continent, but continent becomes difficult to measure and monitor. But as a country, are there good models that we could look into internationally to start bringing these venture funders and capitalists in the country? Because if you probably read the JSE, there's so much cash lying around in private equity, but look at how many venture capitalists that are looking at biotechnologies and life sciences. There's very few of them there. Almost all of them, they're looking at other forms of industries, but little is happening within the mining space. So within the biotech spaces, as maybe for the mining, construction, and so on, what models can you look at and learn from, if any, that you could adopt as a country to start mobilizing venture capitalists to search foot in the country, but more importantly also to look at South Africa as the destination for investment?
Thank you for the question, Sia. I said I hear you, and the question is that, are there successful models that we should adopt in mobilizing international donor funds, and who are the winning countries? And we know that success leaves clues. So where do the successes lie? And maybe one example is Latin America, that has demonstrated success in developing their biotech ecosystem model. I mean, it's shown growth amidst economic and political instability in the region. And they were able to attract both private sector and donor funding from international companies, with Chile leading the way. And according to the report, it was in excess of $30 million to support the efforts to stimulate the bioeconomy in the country. So this regional growth in biotech support has been realized from VC funds. And I think that the amount was in excess of $600 million. It was a 46% growth. And so we as BioCity, we believe in the stimulation of the biotechnology clusters. And we believe if we stimulate the clusters, it will be a winning formula to really, really improve investment in the space. And I don't think it's something that we can do alone. And looking at the caliber of panelists that are here today, if we pull together and merge our efforts, we could too see an unbelievable growth in the sector.
I like that. I'm actually going to ask that question to all of you at the end of this, to say maybe perhaps, let this panel not just be for now, get their heads together and start putting something big, from all of these organizations, that next year we talk about something that has been developed and established by all of you. Obviously, continue with your own autonomy, but somehow, as I think Dr. Akola said, we need to put all of our heads together and approach these international funders. There's a question for you.
I agree with you, Sia. And for me, for BioCity, I'd like to know what my colleagues are doing that are really successful, and what can I learn from them? How can I learn from them, and how can we share our successes, and perhaps share the things that we did that didn't go so well, so we don't repeat the cycle.
Certainly. Dr. Akola, there's a question from you again, from one of our delegates. The question is, you mentioned partnering beyond your country. Where can an entrepreneur access such partnering networks?
You can start from universities. You can start from research organizations. And you could make contacts, in different fields. You have experts in that. Take, for example, this new buzz about cannabis. Okay, let's use that as an example. You could say, okay, look, I want to partner with an institution in Kenya, and you Google for a good institution, or you contact people like us who have the networks, because in this modern world, Dr. Sia, it is networks that matter. It is networks that matter. To get the right network, like I said in my presentation, if you have the right people in your proposal, you already have 50% success that proposal is going to fly through. That is how it works. It's a reality. I mean, my colleagues will bet on that, because they know that these people that you have in that particular project can deliver. So you start with research institutions. You could Google, or you could ask colleagues also in that field who are experts in the different countries, in, for example, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Malawi, any country, more especially those on the red, which I mentioned, especially for grant funding. Your chances will really be higher for you to have that grant.
Thank you. Another question comes from the audience, and to you, Mr. Curtis, that asks this question: that does Invest Durban have partnerships beyond beyond South Africa or outside South Africa that would allow multinational value chains, and also to support? What support does your institution, Invest Durban, or any of its sister organizations perhaps provide to entrepreneurs that are looking to then tap into these value chains, that are beyond the borders of the country?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sia. Look, as Invest Durban, no, we don't provide funding ourselves directly, but we facilitate access to funders. sorry about that, cell phone. We facilitate access to funders. We facilitate access to industrial partnerships. And so the city of Durban's got quite a unique architecture of industrial partnerships. The Durban Automotive Cluster, Durban Chemicals Cluster, Durban Textiles and Clothing Cluster. And so those are formal external public-private partnership legal entities, which we co-fund. We sit on the boards, and we help to then channel deeper localization and deeper opportunities in those value chains to some of the multinationals and some of the larger suppliers across the African continent. We also push different tech solutions or different tech platforms to this question around financing. And one of them that anyone can access is done by a good friend of ours, Darlene Menzies, originally from a company called Development House. And that is finfind.co.za. It's just FIN and then FIND. So finfind.co.za is becoming a fantastic online portal to access finance in quite an intelligent manner. And so behind that FinFind portal, I think they've got something like 350 different access portals to finance based on the need or based on the type of financing that's been sought. So it really is a lot of partnership hard work to get there, but there are platforms that are available.
Thank you. Thank you. Before our time is gone, I know it seems venture capital is always looked at as the best thing after government funding, but there are other models and other systems that could be used. And I want to talk more about the angel funding or angel investments. Now, I know it's not a very much talked about topic within the space of life sciences and bioeconomy, but could we be looking at that as another form within the African continent, especially on the grounds that we don't have big pockets, except for private sector, but where is angel investment in Africa? Lara, maybe perhaps blessed from your point of understanding how this works. Do we have sufficient angel investors? Is that a better model that could also look into to support biotech startup and entrepreneurs?
Thanks, Sia. Thanks for the question. So just to say that there is a successful angel investment model happening in South Africa. We do have networks of angel investors, and they invest at their discretion in areas that are of interest to them and that fall within their mandate. But I don't think that there's any reason why we cannot table biotech as a top drawer investment. With all the expertise of the people on this panel today, I don't see any reason why we cannot table it to the angel investment community and put it on the radar in a very, very big way. So from my side, I see no reason why not.
Yeah, I think just on what Lara said is that people put their money where they know they are going to get. I mean, angel investors, they want a good turnover from the business also, although they will help you, but they look at the sectors also that biotech is a sector that is, I mean, COVID has revealed a lot of opportunities in this area that they should start putting some money in diagnostics. Some of our colleagues also got money from angel investors in the diagnostic space because of COVID. So they put their money in areas that they know these are growing sectors and areas that they are going to have a good turnover. So you as an entrepreneur should also think innovatively on how you put your proposal, the kind of project you want to put to them.
Agreed. I agree with you there.
Okay, colleagues, I think our time is almost over. I'm going to ask the last question. So that's a very brief one, half a minute or so. What can you expect from your institution, starting with you, Russell, over the next 5 years? That is going to be, what's the right word now? That's going to be turning things around in support for biotech innovation and bioeconomies in the country and the continent, if you have that mandate.
Yeah. So thanks. Yeah. Look. Really, I know I've said this, but I'm repeating it again. We intentionally choose to work via public-private partnerships. So as Invest Durban, we'll continue to push into the organized business structures. I've mentioned some of them today. We continue to invest our funds into those. We continue to invest our time into those, because I don't believe there's a lack of money in the world. I don't believe there's a lack of funding in the world. I think the problem is access. I think the problem is knowledge of those. And most importantly, the linkages to those are either difficult to access or those linkages channels are blocked. So we'll continue to exert ourselves in those spaces, bringing the chairs of public sector, private sector, academia, and industry closer together so that we can unlock those blockages, so that we can improve those linkages, so that we can accelerate the dissemination of information to the pots of money that are out there, not just in South Africa, but from the international community, who do in fact see Africa as the last frontier of double-digit growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Colin?
Yes, thank you so much. With Kemin, we are truly solidifying our assistance to become holistic in the sense that technically we've got laboratories and we're going through accreditation, making sure that we offer both chemical and microbiological assistance. And then manufacturing aspects, like I've said, well, we've got the soap and salt plant almost complete. And then we're putting up the cosmetics plant, which will have a nutraceutical line. That means IKS will be fully supported. And then in our partnership with VUT at the VAL, where we've got our microbiological laboratory, it's also a fully equipped center to assist natural products, IKS and so forth. And then lastly, we're expanding our fund. Like I mentioned, currently it's a 30 million fund, and we're increasing and growing it and making sure that by the end of next year, at least it's a 100 million fund, and which is open to IKS natural products and so forth. Okay. And then our shop is gaining strength by each day, and soon it will be really a national, with a national footprint, and making sure we deliver products nationally. So yes, we're offering a holistic support service.
Thank you. I won't go around the panel, but I think the message that should come out of this is that beyond this panel, we should then get our heads together, and maybe Africa should push that to start tapping into these funds outside of the borders of South Africa. Thank you to my panelists, and thank you to the control team. But more importantly, thanks to our audience who kept us very busy. Please continue to support the other programs within the convention till we meet again. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Siya. Thank you, Siya.
Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.